Welcome to the driver ratings of the Spanish Grand Prix. It's a bit belated, I've been away, so bear with me, but what a race we got in the end, and number 10 will be an interesting chat, won't it, this week? Let's get straight to it though. As ever, we start with the race winner, Oscar OP81 Piastri. Yeah, it is 81, I was just double checking his number there. What a race this lad had. Coming off the back of Monaco, where it was all about Lando Norris and is he back in the championship? His title lead was down to 3 points. And I thought Lando Norris would be on a bit of a charge, a massive high for him to win in Monaco. And we got Oscar just dimming that quite quickly. And he said, look, I am the man for this championship with a brilliant pole lap, the largest margin we've seen from P1 to P2 all season, with a brilliant lap. And in the race, he was almost just toying with Lando Norris, wasn't he? I mean, it didn't help that Norris didn't get the start he needed to just stay in second place, at least, so there was a fight. But even then, in the second stint when Norris was second, he just sort of comfortably let him flirt with him, get him within like 2.5 seconds of him, and then he just stepped on it a little bit and said, nah, I've got you in my pocket this weekend. And boy, did he do a tremendous job. It was such a cool, collected performance. You just never put a foot wrong, and his tyre management has just been second to none, and it was his biggest weakness last season. He couldn't get to grips with these tyres, and this season the levels this kid has jumped has been unbelievable. We've seen the progression from year 1 to year 3, and you can see why McLaren was so eager to get him on his books, because he's Lando, I still think, has got it over one lap, but has he now? Because Oscar is just pulling off qualifying laps when it matters. I think it's that cool head that just helps him get the better of Norris, because I think raw talent and pace, I think Norris probably just edges him now, but still, Piastri's still got a bit of way to go in development, and we can see the levels that he can jump. Can he continue that level? And we've seen with Verstappen early doors to go to where he's become. Can Oscar follow that trajectory? And that's going to be the key for him going forward. But what a race. It was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, flawless. That's what I've written down. Just a flawless weekend from Oscar Piastri. Nothing but a 10 out of 10. Second place man, Lando Norris, follows home his teammate. Another McLaren 1-2. A brilliant result for them this weekend. They were absolutely flying. We thought, the technical directive would change things a little bit. Would we see them fall back a little bit closer to the guys behind? But it looks like they've just extended that gap. That car is just absolutely phenomenal. Lando Norris, he just had a really bad start to let Max Verstappen go, and we got robbed of the fight that we've been looking forward to pretty much all season, is where we just want the two McLarens to fight it out. It looks like it's a championship between the two of them at the moment as things stand, unless things change drastically over the next 3 or 4 weekends. I can't see it be anyone but a McLaren driver taking the championship this season. They just look phenomenal. And Lando Norris just needs to get things right in qualifying. He just, at any point in the weekend, actually, I just don't think he had anything on Oscar Piastri, and the start put bed to any chance of us seeing a real fight at the front. And he starts again, critical starts where it matters. He's just getting them wrong, mistakes. It was a scruffy qualifying lap. He looked like Nico Rosberg was saying, he was just pushing too hard, and that cost him. He was just losing bits of time all over his quali lap. He didn't get the right start, and then showed good pace in the race. He was clearly comfortably faster than Max Verstappen. He had to press because Verstappen was brilliant actually up until when he exploded, and he was in a bit of a fight with Verstappen, but he put that to bed, and then it looked like, could he close on Piastri? And I think Piastri just had his number this weekend. But when you're having an off weekend, this is what Lando Norris has to do, and it'll be crucial that he carries on this way for the rest of the season, where if he's not having a great race, just finish second, come home behind your championship rival, and minimise the damage. And that was kind of what he can do really this weekend, and it was all about that. And he absolutely did the job on that side of things. We just need to see him have a fight with his teammate, and hopefully we'll get that next time out in Canada, but didn't really come this weekend. I'm giving him an 8 out of 10. Third place man, Charles Leclerc, and what a race this boy had from P7 into the podium. Obviously helped by the safety car and the strategy call ahead of him with the Red Bull of Verstappen on the hards and him on the softs. But he got a brilliant start. He was right up alongside Lewis Hamilton at the start. And then just slotted in behind him, and it was a brilliant move, the dive in on George Russell to pass the two Mercedes, and then from there onwards he was quick. He sacrificed his qualifying for the race, and it really paid dividends. He was on the the new mediums, and he was catching, and it looked like he might have a fight with Verstappen potentially, but then the safety car really lit up his race for him, and he snatched that P3 in the end with a little bit of a touching with Verstappen. But what a great race from him, a podium. You can just be so thankful for the way that it worked out in the end. But what a real great race from him to snatch a podium, and it just didn't look like it was on at all. P4, they looked like they were the car to be there, at least Leclerc anyway. But what a tremendous job. You could just maximise everything that he could this weekend. A brilliant job. I'm giving him a 10 out of 10. Fourth place man, George Russell, started in fourth, finished in fourth in the end. He got a decent start actually, but it was just his positioning down into turn one that cost him really badly. Went on the inside, and then he got blocked up behind, I think it was Verstappen ahead of him at the point. Lewis Hamilton went round the outside, and then he got caught out by the brilliant move from Charles Leclerc that dropped him down behind the two Ferraris. And then the middle part of his race didn't look too great. The Mercedes just didn't have pace in the race at all. And then he was just kind of helped a little bit with getting past Lewis Hamilton when he had that poor pit stop. And then in the second part of the race, obviously with the penalty from Max Verstappen, that helped him move ahead of him. And probably not a great weekend overall for the Mercedes boys and Russell, but when you look at the result at the end, it was actually really good from them to nick P4, because it didn't look like they had that pace in the car for much of that race, to be honest with you. They looked like they were a bit slower than the Ferraris this weekend, and obviously slower than the Red Bull of Max Verstappen and the two McLarens who were running out front. But Mercedes will be scratching their heads a little bit. They just seem to have gone looking like they were second fastest, third fastest car, battling with the Red Bulls, and now they seem to have dropped back behind the Ferraris this weekend. So a bit of a strange one for them. They didn't have a great Monaco either, so a little bit of work to do on that car, and just trying to get back on top of things. But George just absolutely maximised the best he could out of this race weekend. I'm giving him a 7 out of 10. Fifth place man, Nico Hülkenberg. Yes, you heard that right. The man of the race, really. I wouldn't say of the weekend, because his qualifying wasn't great, really. He's qualified in P15, but what a start to the race he got. Up into P11 on the first lap. Lap 2, he made a brilliant move on Fernando Alonso, got up into P10, and then the strategy calls from them were actually really good. After the first stops played out, he was up into P9, and then the safety car, he was absolutely flying. He had a set of brand new softs, and that was a massive difference for him. He got himself up into P6, and then a brilliant move on Lewis Hamilton to get himself up into P5. An absolutely tremendous result in the end, matches his best result from I think it was 2019, a P5, the last time he's been up that far up front. A brilliant driver, and he's back to show why Sauber was so keen to pick him, and he's pulled off a race like this, gets him off the bottom of the constructors with some big haul of points, and nothing but credit to him, because he's done an absolute tremendous job. He put it down to the work of the guys back at Sauber with this big upgrade package, and it really shone through this weekend. Strategy wise, it worked out for them as well. They made the right calls, and that put them in the position to take an absolutely phenomenal result. What a drive for Nico Hülkenberg. Nothing but a 10 out of 10. You just can't ask for anything better than that for this weekend. Sixth place man, Lewis Hamilton, started and finished in sixth. I mean, he had a really good start to the race, a great pass on George Russell. But then after that, he just seemed to have lapped pace by lap 10. I mean, Charles Leclerc was all over him for a couple of laps. And then eventually told to let Leclerc pass because it just didn't look like Lewis had the car in him. He said he was just not sure what was wrong with the car. He was like, I just didn't understand it. It was absolutely nowhere, this car, all this weekend. It was reported that there was damage on the car. They found that there was damage on the car at the end of the race. Not sure exactly what that was, but yeah, I think it looked like he was comfortably going to just finish behind Charles Leclerc until the poor pit stop that put him behind the Mercedes. And then from there on, I think he drove a race you could probably hope for. Disappointing and much made of the pass on Hulkenberg on him, but Hulkenberg was a much fresh, brand new softs. Don't know how old exactly the soft tyres were on Lewis Hamilton. That didn't help him, but yeah, not very happy at all with his race. But I think it's actually a fairly decent race from him, to be honest. But I think he just put a real downer on it, and it just looks like it should have been rated like a 4 out of 10, but I just genuinely don't think it was that great. It wasn't anything spectacular, nothing to write home about, but I don't think it was as bad as he felt it was when he stepped back and looks at things. I'm giving him a 6 out of 10 for this weekend. Seventh place man, Isaac Hadjar, and this boy is going places. P9 to P7. It looked like he was in a solid P8, obviously helped out with the Verstappen penalty that put him into P7, but again, he just said he got the best he could this weekend, absolutely maximised everything. He beats his teammate Liam Lawson, and you've still got to remember he's a rookie, and if you think of the disastrous start to the season he's had, and he was crying, and even Helmut Marko sort of digging down on the young rookie, where everyone's sort of saying, whoa, just chill on the guy like it's his first race, but boy, has he shown he's got some mettle, and yeah, a huge sack with some big ones in there, in it, to show he's just got the full mentality. He's been so impressive, this kid, alongside Kimi Antonelli, but I think he's sort of stepped him a little bit now, hasn't he, as the most impressive rookie of the season so far. He's been absolutely phenomenal. The only thing that you can hope for is that he just doesn't get that second Red Bull seat at the moment, and there are more rumours and pushing for him. Is Isaac the man to put the questions of the second Red Bull seat to bed? Still well too early for him. It's his first season, and we know this Red Bull car is much more easier to drive, or the Racing Bulls car, than the senior team's car. Obviously, we've seen that with Yuki, who's gone over there and struggled in the new Red Bull, but actually was on par or beating Isaac Hadjar. So yeah, absolutely massively impressive back on Hadjar. A brilliant rookie season so far, and another brilliant result. I'm giving him a 9 out of 10. Eighth place man, Pierre Gasly, started in 8th, finished in 8th in the end. He was in P13 for much of the race, and then he got up to P10. The long strategy call to go long on that first stint really helped him out to gain a lot of positions, and he did well to keep them. He stayed out long on the safety car, and then put on a fresh set of boots, and he did really well to keep them positions, because for all the world it didn't look like that car had it in it, but Pierre drove brilliantly well. Not something massively to write home about, but P8 in that car, is he out driving? It's hard to tell, because we just see cars that come along and be like absolutely nowhere one weekend and like fighting for really good points, and it's like that with sort of Haas, Alpine seem to be doing it. We've seen that a little bit with Racing Bulls, where they're just in the top 10, just a bit out of it, and also with Williams as well, where they looked nowhere this weekend, but before that they were fighting right at the front. So they didn't have a great Monaco either, did they, Williams? So it's hard to tell where it's not really clear cut like we've seen before, where we've got these are sort of the order of cars of how good they are. They all seem to be mix and mashing a bit and getting really inconsistent results. But for this one, for Pierre Gasly, obviously it worked out really, really well for him. The safety car absolutely helped him in the end on that one, because he was running on long old tyres, where everyone was fresher tyres ahead of him or behind him, and it looked like he'd get swamped and kicked knocked out of that P8 and out of the top 10, but he managed to hold on thanks to the safety car. But that's, you know, you've just got to drive the race, and what comes at it, you've got to manage it, and he absolutely did do that. And I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10 for this weekend. Ninth place man Fernando Alonso finally brings home some points at his home Grand Prix, but it wasn't his best race by any means. Started in 10th, which was probably a decent qualifying position from him, and then at the start in lap 2 he lost that position to Nico Hülkenberg down in P11, and then just was running there for much of the race, and then he just surprisingly went off track. Didn't look like there was anything wrong with the car, just an error from Fernando Alonso's car, from Fernando Alonso himself, but we don't really see anything like that at all. And then it doesn't look like there was any pace in the car. He was running P17 at one point, but when the safety car came out and he went for the pits and he made that move, and that really turned his race around, because he was racy, got quickly past Carlos Sainz, moved himself up forward, and then got past Lawson and Bortoletto. In the end, he was fighting for much of the race, and brings home some much needed first points of the season for him. Hopefully he can kick on from here and go on to better things. You know, that Aston Martin does look better than it did earlier in the season, and hopefully they can bring some more upgrades and move that car in the right direction. Or are they really going to just look to 26? Let's hope there's something more to come from them, and we can see Fernando again fighting for some points, but so far it's been a bit of a strange season for him, but yeah, much needed points, a really good result for him in the end. But I'm giving him a 7 out of 10 despite that, because I don't think it was his best race. 10th place finish for Max Verstappen, and this is the man that took all the headlines this weekend for probably the wrong reasons, really. Up until the safety car, he had an absolutely brilliant race, took the fight to one of the McLarens at least, the best he could. Early doors, it looked like he was struggling on his tyres. Already by lap 11 and 12, he was passed by Lando Norris on lap 13, and then they switched strategy with the street three stop, and it nearly worked out absolutely brilliantly for them. And it was just, yeah, absolutely looked like a brilliant drive from Max Verstappen up until that point. Right on the McLaren, Lando Norris obviously really annoyed by the slow blue flag cars ahead of him, where he was like, half a second behind Norris at one point. And had they got head out of the way quickly enough, there was a chance for DRS down the straight and a bit of pressure on Lando Norris at that point. And then it just went all wrong at the safety car. He had no tyres left. The only tyre they could stick on him were the hards. In hindsight, it was probably the wrong call to switch him, and he should have just stayed out on softs, and then just tried to battle it out with the guys up front and just hold position, which we know he can do brilliantly well when it comes to a battle up at the top. And yeah, I'm surprised they didn't do that, and I think there was a bit of fault on the team side here that sort of let Verstappen down an awful lot, and he just lost his head there, didn't he? After the restart, got a big tail out. How he managed to catch that was unbelievable. Got the touch with with Charles Leclerc down the straight, which was obviously wasn't very happy with that. And then he got the dive of George Russell, which looked 50-50 at best, and it looked like it all came down to, when you look at the rules, was George Russell in control of the car, and that's where I think Red Bull just read it wrong a little bit, didn't they? And they called Verstappen to give that place back, which absolutely infuriated him. And then he went for the a strange move, and he just slowed for him and then decided, hang on a minute, I'm not doing this. Or what did he just make a mistake in that he was going to give the place back and then realised that actually I shouldn't give the place back here, I should give it on the last corner so I can get the DRS down straight and then try and pass him immediately back. But either way, whatever he was thinking, it looked like, it was clearly deliberate, because when you look at his statement after the race next day, where he sort of cooled down and he sort of said, yeah, that shouldn't have happened. And even his staunch supporter, Helmut Marko, coming around and saying, that's just not on that. You can't do that sort of stuff. He apologised to the rest of the team, and so therefore you just got to look at it and think it was pretty deliberate, that. And then you look at the penalty given out for it, and just 10 seconds. I mean, he looked like he's absolutely got away with one there, because we've seen Vettel do that before. He got a stop-go penalty, and I do feel that Max Verstappen should have got the same. It was absolutely not on what he did there. The professional high-end racing, to do that on the big stage is purely not acceptable at all. It was Mario Kart's like Lando Norris was saying in the cool-down room, everyone was sort of a bit stum about it, didn't really want to step on Verstappen's toes, but so to speak, and just sort of throw him in the bush and say, yeah, it was deliberate, he should have been given a black flag, like sort of Nico Rosberg was calling for in commentary immediately when he did it. Should have been a black flag. It should definitely have been more than a 10-second penalty, I'll say that. And I think more likely it should have been a stop-go penalty. It should have been a more severe penalty because you just absolutely cannot do that. He's a multiple world champion. I get it. You lose your head sometimes, but to do that was just absolutely uncalled for. And it's cost him massive points in the championship. He's just thrown away. I mean, to come home with 1 point is really, really lucky in the end. He's now 39 points behind Oscar Piastri, and if things do fall right for this car with some upgrades at some point and give him a chance, he might be looking back and absolutely ruin this weekend where he thinks, yeah, I really did throw it away myself here. Yeah, absolutely shocking. But up until that safety car moment, he was absolutely brilliant. There was, I would also say, like a 10 out of 10 weekend a race for him because he was phenomenal. Really took the fight to a car that he just, wasn't anywhere near quick enough to do so. But then, yeah, absolutely threw it away. Toying with this one between a 1 and a 0. I'm going to give him a 1 out of 10 just because I think the majority of the race he was brilliant, but you just cannot do that. It was completely unacceptable. A 1 out of 10 for Max Verstappen this weekend. Let's hope now he doesn't do that again. He's just got 11 penalty points, one more and he gets a race ban. He's got some grace up until Austria, which is 2 races time, where they will just clear away them points or lose 2 of them at least. So he still does need to be really careful up until most of the end of the year. At least I think in December is where the rest of his points he'll lose a little bit more, and he's got some saving grace, but any more serious incident like this, it can really catch him out. Will he change his driving style now knowing that? I think so, because that's why we've seen of the Max Verstappen. He goes up to the limit and he knows sort of the rules and where he needs to be careful. But sometimes these things can happen just even when it's not really like touch and go. So he kind of really does need to be careful for the next couple of races. Let's see if he can turn things around from here. 11th place man, Liam Lawson. He started in 13th, finished 11th in the end. Well, he had a race and a half, didn't he? In a battle with Alex Albon, made a pass on him. Albon went down the escape route and then kept that position. I think that infuriated him, and that's when he had that collision with Albon on the second overtake, and then he got the same with Ollie Behrman a bit more later on, and then that got him a penalty. But up until that point, it looked like really he was on for some decent points, at least 1 point, and to finish in the top 10. And then the safety car came out, and that really scuppered him because he stayed out, tried to just manage it on the tyres, and it really just didn't work for him at all. And then the fast guys behind him on fresh rubber took him like Fernando Alonso and Hulkenberg and the likes, and that kicked him out of the points. He's kind of struggled a little bit, really, hasn't he, so far, Liam Lawson, since that demotion from Red Bull. We've not seen any standout performance from him just yet. Comfortably beaten by Isaac Hadjar again, and no points for him this weekend. But he was racy, looked like he got himself up into some points. But for that safety car, I think he would have come home with at least a point in the end, but it wasn't to be. A decent enough race, but I'm still going to give him a 6 out of 10 for this weekend. Gabi Bortoleto started in 12th, finished there in the end. Well, what a qualifying session, firstly, foremost from him, because it was brilliant to put that car where he did and give him a chance for some points in the end, but it just wasn't to be. Strategy call was all wrong. He got undercut by pretty much everybody. He pitted on lap 19 on the softs, which just wasn't a good call from the team at all. And then from there onwards, it was just a bit of a struggle of a race. Didn't look like any points were on, and he just came home in 12th place in the end. Another one, a decent enough race, but when you see his teammate coming home in good points, it looked like points should have been on the card for him this weekend. But it just didn't quite come together for him in the race. But a bit of a hard one, because he had an absolute absolutely brilliant qualifying session, but just a so-so race. I'm giving him a 7 out of 10. 13th place man, Yuki Tsunoda, and well, what can you say about this kid? It's really hard to watch at the moment because he was doing so well early doors in that Racing Bulls, but when he's come to the Red Bull, he's had moments of where he seems like he's getting on top of things and then just not. He's qualified plumb last in 19th, and then he had a pit lane start. And normally they say pits to P13, that's a decent result, but not in this car, I would say. A bit of a strange strategy call from him as well. He was on the mediums, but one of the early guys to pit, he was on lap 9, he got rid of his medium tyres, which I thought was really strange because people were going longer on the softs than he did on the mediums. Yeah, and then from there on, it was up to P12 when everybody pit at the end. Didn't really make the most of the safety car either. He seems to be taking like half a step forward and then like 3 or 4 steps back in this Red Bull, not still quite getting to grips with it. He just looked a little bit lost and all over the place. Doesn't seem to have the confidence that he first brought into the team, and he kind of needs to just have a race where he kind of finds himself a little bit again, pick up some decent points. But this one, another tough weekend for Yuki. I'm giving him a 2 out of 10. 14th place man, Carlos Sainz, and another one where he's had a difficult qualifying session. P17 in that car, was actually really poor from qualifying session. Yes, we know the Williams wasn't great here, but it wasn't that poor at all really. And then he went long on the softs, and then got himself up to P30, was P10 at one point, but it was just a difficult weekend for him when he qualified that poorly. In the race, he pushed as hard as he could, just didn't seem to get on top of it. The safety car didn't really help him. He didn't really maximise that part of the race for him either. Just a race weekend to forget him. It's interesting, he's now 30 points behind Alex Albon in the championship, which is not what you expected him to behind his teammate Albon, especially he's a big marquee signing. Yes, we've seen all drivers gone into new teams really struggle, and we've seen him again, like a bit like Yuki, where he's gone, shown some brilliant performances, and then some really shocking ones. And this one was a home race for him, where he'd probably hoped for more, and it just didn't really come along for him at all. I'm giving him a 4 out of 10. 15th place man, Franco Colapinto, and it's been another weekend where it's been really a struggle for him. Qualified in 18th place, finished in 15th in the end. Went long on the first stints, but he was absolutely miles back at that point in the race. He just looked like he was on it at any point in the race weekend, where he looked like he's got on top of the car and looked quick. Somehow he's beaten the two Haas team guys, who they just seem like their race self-imploded a little bit. It's only a third race, so should we really be given some grace? He's not had any pre-season, not really much testing in this car. He's been in and around the car, so he's done some, sim racing in that car back at the factory, but he seems to have really struggled. And we say only 3 races, but he's only been given 5 races to show that he can do a better job than Jack Doohan did. I mean, at the moment, are we going to say that Jack would have been as bad as he was? I mean, it's if buts and maybes, we don't know, but absolutely he was nowhere this weekend. Really needs a moment to show that he's got that pace that we saw in the Williams, where he was absolutely phenomenal with that, raw pace. We just kind of needs to show that a little bit more, and it's not really come together, and he's only got potentially 2 more races for him to show that yes, he's the man for this car, and he can keep that seat till the end of the season, but not a race for him this weekend. A 4 out of 10 for me. 16th place man, Esteban Ocon, started there, finished there in the end, was up to P12 at one point, looked like he was like around P13, P14. Not a great race, but then the absolutely strange decision came where everybody around him pit when the safety car came out on the softs, and this guy was on old mediums, and the team decided to let him out. I mean, he was only in 13th place. What did you expect him to do? He was hardly going to pass guys ahead of him or who were on fresher softs. when you're on old mediums, he was going to look for like he was in some points. So a really strange call from the team to not bring him in and put some fresh tyres on him during that safety car, and that cost him in the end because he dropped back more places and finished in 16th place in the end. Not a great weekend for the Haas. They didn't look like they had any pace in that car or look like they could fight for any points. And a weekend to forget for Ocon. I'm giving him a 3 out of 10. 17th place man Ollie Berman qualified in 14th place, and it was actually a really good qualifying session considering where that car was, but then the race just went all wrong for him. Was up to P11 at one point after the first stints, and you look like, oh, this could be a decent weekend for him, but he did pit a lot earlier than the guys around him, and that cost him in the second part of the race where he sort of had to do that longer stint, and then he had that battle with Liam Lawson, which cost him in the end. He got a penalty which put him way back, but it was a real mix of a weekend, a really good qualifying but a really poor race, and summed up what was just a bad weekend for the Haas team. I've given him a 3 out of 10. Let's get to the DNFs, and then the first of them was Alex Albon on lap 29, and it was absolutely a horrible race from him. Didn't go well from the start, really, did it? He got in that tangle with Nick Hulkenberg, got hit there, not really much he could do. It's just sort of a way that happens sometimes in racing. A little bit unlucky with the first incident, then he had to pit, go and change his front wing, and he ended up last. And then we seen obviously his battle with Liam Lawson down at turn 1 on lap 25, and then he got a 10-second penalty for that. Got damage again on his front wing, and I think the Williams boy thought, let's just save the car and the parts. It's not a race we're going to get anything from this weekend, and they parked it in the end, unless there was more further damage that we could see. But it was, yeah, just a scruffy, horrible race weekend for him and the Williams team. I'm giving him a 4 out of 10 because I just thought, normally I do give no rating when it's less than half race distance completed, but I think he just had such a strange race, and it did take so much parts of it. It was just, yeah, I've got to give him a rating. Probably could have been lower than a 4 out of 10. I think I'm feeling a little bit generous, but benefit of the doubt, I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10. The next of the DNFs was Kimi Antonelli on lap 55, and it was a tough weekend for him. He actually had a good start, but then he went wide at turn 2, which meant he got passed by Charles Leclerc, and then he was behind George Russell, and he just didn't seem to have the pace of George at all this weekend. I'm not sure how long he was carrying this engine trouble for, but it did just seem like it just switched off, didn't it, on lap 55 and brought to an end, which was, I'd got to say, it was just been a difficult weekend for him. Decent enough qualifying to qualify himself in P6, but nothing he can do about the DNF car. Just switched off and then off he went. But I just got to say, it was probably just an okay weekend for him. Shame about the DNF, and I think he would have come home in points because he was comfortably ahead of Isaac Hadjar at that point. But yeah, ends up with nothing in the end. I'm giving him a 6 out of 10. And let's get to the predictions review, because I think it's been one of my best predictions of the season. Let's go back to it. I thought Max Verstappen would take the win, Lando Norris in second and Charles Leclerc in third, and I got, well, 2 of the 3 right there. Oscar Piastri was absolutely phenomenal, and Norris and Leclerc did take the podiums in the end. When you look at the race, the majority of it looked like it would be an unlikely Charles Leclerc podium, but he snatched it in the end. I thought it'd be a good weekend for the Aston, and I'm going to take that because Fernando Alonso come home with some points, the only car that they had in the race. So 2 points, I think that's a positive for them, and I thought it'd be a bad race weekend for the Haas guys and it absolutely was. They've both finished plumb last, comfortably miles back. The car wasn't quick, and the team made strategy errors as well on that one. So yeah, there we have it. That's the driver ratings for the Spanish Grand Prix. Thanks for watching. Watch out for the Canadian Grand Prix preview coming shortly. Please like, subscribe, comment as always. See you on the next one.